Hey guys, Brandon with Eternal Armory here. Doing a little video out in the garage today as I assemble a set of gauntlets. I wanted to kind of talk about something that I use to put the hinges in. Now what these are just standard piano hinges. I believe they're the 1.5 inch wide, generally what we use. And my little secret ingredient that I use to put these things in, because sometimes it can be difficult to glue metal to plastic, is something called Q-bond. I also use a little bit of Loctite just as kind of a backup, the GO2 glue. But the big secret is this stuff, and currently where we discovered this was that body shops use it. They use it for fixing interior panels or clips and things like that. It's really good for plastic. But what we found is that it actually makes a nice pseudo homemade rivet to hold metal onto a plastic gauntlet. When you get a box of this stuff, it basically comes with 2 bottles of the powder, which is a strengthening powder, and then 2 bottles of the Q-bond glue, which basically is just a really super strong CA glue. I recommend using it where there's a lot of ventilation, because it's kind of stinky, as the old super glues were. It's really fast, it's really strong, and it does put off a little bit of fume, so you want to make sure you've got some clean air to do it in. But what I'll do here is just kind of show you how it works. First of all, you can see here that I've taken my sander and just kind of roughed up the face of these hinges, at least the face that will contact the plastic of the gauntlet. Basically what that does is gives it just kind of a rough surface for the glue to grip. And then this is overkill, you don't really need this, but I tend to over-engineer things. I always put just a little bit of this GO2 glue kind of in between the holes. The holes are what's really going to hold these in once we get the Q-bond on there. But I do this just because the GO2 glue is kind of a rubbery glue and stays flexible, just in case you would ever take a good whack and the Q-bond for some reason would crack loose. The GO2 would sustain and take just a little bit more of an impact and still stay attached, since it's a little softer even when it's cured. Now you can see that I've used 5 clamps, just little cheapy squeeze clamps, to hold it in place. The GO2 glue is between there, so one of the biggest things when you're clamping is just to make sure that your hinge edge lines up very nicely from end to end so you don't have some crazy gaps. But once you have it clamped up like this, it's just a matter of putting some powder in and putting a couple drops of the Q-bond in the holes to make what I call a plastic rivet. Okay, this is our first little hole here, and you'll see that basically I've got the black powder. You gotta be pretty careful with this stuff because it's pretty free. You just want to get a little bit in there. And if you miss the hole, that's okay. This stuff won't hurt you. You can basically just kind of rake it down in a little hole. You can shape it to some extent. It's a bit like sand. But once you've got it in the hole, you just take your Q-bond and you just put a single drop at a time on it. I actually did 2 drops there on accident, sorry. It's a little hard to hold the camera and do this. So what I'll do, if you put a little extra, you can always put just a little more powder. But essentially, once that drop hits that powder, that is hard as a rock. It is done. Very hard. Matter of fact, once those powder pieces touched, it dried immediately. It's very, very strong. You can see here that I've done all the holes. Sometimes you'll have just a little bit deeper hole. If it makes you feel better, you can put just a little bit of the powder in the bottom. Go ahead and put a drop on it. Let it dry for just a couple of seconds, and then add a little powder on top and add another drop. This stuff does stick to itself. You can layer it, build it up. You can basically fill gaps with it. You don't want to have too high of a pile of powder at any given time, simply because the one drop has to be able to soak through it, and it's such an instantaneous cure. Sometimes it doesn't get a chance to get to the granules of powder on the bottom. So I'll sometimes do a little thinner layer of powder, go ahead and activate it with a drop, and then add a little powder on top of that, just to make sure that I get deep enough. I usually leave these clamped for just a little while. You don't really have to. It's pretty much solid the moment you put that drop on there and you see it wet that powder. So this stuff's pretty amazing. It's quick, you don't have to clamp things and wait overnight. I usually wait 5-10 minutes just to give it, you know, some time to dry. You can see on this one that I put the extra drop on, it's just a little bit wet still. You don't want to touch that. It's going to adhere to you very well. It likes the flesh of your fingers, so keep your fingers back. If it appears to be still wet, it's not good for skin. I mentioned earlier that it does come with 2 bottles of powder, the reinforcing powders. The glue can be used by itself, but I think where it really shines is when it's used in conjunction with the powders. You get a gray and you get a black. Like I said, it was originally intended for car interior use, and those are probably the most common colors of plastic panels in cars, as well as electrical connectors that you can actually repair with this stuff too. Okay, my clamps are off, and you can see here it didn't take very long at all. That did not leave any mars on the surface. You don't have any rivets sticking through, but you've made essentially a plastic rivet on the inside between the plastic and the metal, and that GO2 glue is in between there to help you out in case it ever fails, just as kind of a backup. Again, not necessary, but kind of handy to have in there. But this is ready for the other side to be glued in, and essentially what I do on these guys is you have this little divot, which is a detail on the outside of the Deathwatch gauntlet. I'll take some scrap usually, as you can see here, a couple of squares, and I just quickly super glue those in. Actually, I used the Q-Bond, just the glue itself, to stick those in there, and I clamped them for just about 30 seconds, and they're good to go. What that does is kind of fills up where you've got a bit of a trough there from that detail, fills up that leveling, so you don't have to put near as much powder in there. Just a drop, kind of like you did on the other side. Now, you're probably wondering just exactly how you put 5 clamps on a piece that is going to be closed. Well, basically what I do is I put a clamp on each end, and I can't do the middle clamps just because this is in the way once you get it together. Once you get it all lined up, basically you can only clamp the ends. So, unless you've got some really long clamps that'll reach in there, which is fine too. I have found that this stuff, as long as you're pinching it down when you go to make your glue joint, your plastic rivet, as it were, basically it holds within 10 seconds. So you don't really need the clamp as much as you might think you do. Having it on the ends help. Speaking of the ends, I do also put just a little bit of Q-Bond there at the end of each hinge. Just as a safety. Again, I overdo it sometimes, but I'd rather have it never ever fail than to have it fail and wonder why I didn't do that in the first place. So that's what we've got. Q-Bond's going to be available on our website, I believe, soon, so keep your eyes out for that. It's a very handy thing, not just for hinges, but for a great deal of other uses in costuming. So this is Brandon. Thanks for watching our video, and check out the website, follow us on Facebook, hit that red subscribe button down below, and we will see you all a little later.